Cade Baxter with Mossy Oak Properties, Texas Land Advisors, and today we're with Dudley Phelps, who is involved with Mossy Oak Native Nurseries and with also Mossy Oak Gamekeepers, and he is an expert in all things vegetation, trees and food plots and plants and habitat. And so, very grateful for your time and taking the time to talk
glad to be
us.
here. I love this kind of stuff.
Good. Well, we have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
The first question is, in your opinion, what are some of the best mass-producing trees?
Okay, so it depends, and that's kind of tough to say, but it really depends on where you are. But some of our most popular species that we offer, chestnuts, deer absolutely love them. They drop at a time of year when there's really not a whole lot of food available, kind of in the late summer, early fall. So that's really a good tree for deer. You really can't beat a persimmon. They're just very site plastic, meaning that they can handle a big range of soil types, and they're good for a whole bunch of different critters. They attract insects that birds and turkeys and things like, and then they drop this really good fruit that everything likes to eat, including humans. But like in a drier Texas climate, it can provide moisture when a deer eats it or a coyote eats it or something like that. But that one, bur oak is a really popular one, again, because it's site plastic. It's in the white oak section. Deer and other animals love to eat them. And they can grow, down at the bottom of a hill. They can grow at the top of a hill. They can grow in acidic soils, and they can grow in alkaline soils. White oak, that's a favorite by deer. Nuttall oak is another good one. It's also popular in Texas, but it drops really late in the winter. So, when your food plots have been eaten down to where they look like a putting green, Nuttalls are just starting to drop.
That's the name of the game.
But that's a few of my favorites.
That's great. That's great. And like I said, I love the diversity of some of the soil types they can withstand that you're talking about, especially in Texas, having such a diverse soil composition across the state of Texas. That versatility is a huge asset.
For sure.
So that's okay. Second question that I have for you. So some people might inherit or they purchase a land that is heavily overgrazed, or it has a low vegetation diversity in the ecosystem there locally. What would be the most cost-effective and most effective way to restore that native vegetation to that place?
Sure, and that is just a huge topic these days. And a lot of, like you were saying, a lot of these tracts of land were previously in cattle production. They were planting non-native turf grasses like Bermuda, Bahia, and those species are basically nothingness for wildlife. So if you have a lot of acreage in Bermuda, you can just erase that acreage from your farm as being beneficial wildlife habitat. You can walk around in it, fescue also, and kick it around, and you don't really get any bugs come up. You stand in the middle of it, you don't hear birds chirping. Herbicides can be a controversial subject, but they are a great tool. We're fighting fire with fire. So we can use herbicides to get rid of a lot of those non-native invasive cattle grasses. And, believe it or not, they could have been in those grasses for 80 years, but there's all kinds of things in the seed bank. And if you can set them back or kill those non-natives, you won't believe some of the beneficial stuff that's just waiting to jump out. And if you combine that with a little bit of fire, which our landscapes have evolved to need that fire. Our species, a lot of them need that fire to come back. And so you combine a little bit of herbicide with a little bit of fire, just one time. And then all that stuff will come back and thrive.
I love that.
And then you'll start walking through there, and you will be kicking up all those bugs. You will be hearing those birds. You'll start hearing quail again. That's right. Turkeys can't nest in Bermuda. They got to have some of that thick cover with food and bugs. So.
Yeah. I love that, and I think it's a real easy way to get in with the herbicide, and then following it up with fire, and it's seeing the diversity of those vegetation species coming in back. seeing the bugs, and then also the birds and just the overall ecosystem coming back to life. So I love that's a great input.
You know, the lack of fire, you know, you guys have a lot of problems with cedar encroachment, you know, or junipers, whatever you want to call them. And, you know, a fire will get rid of them real quick. And again, you'll start seeing that seed bank pop. And you can, you know, you can plant some plants, you know, everything you need may not come back. So you could always scatter some stuff that you order and plant.
And a lot of those seeds in the seed bank will also be a lot more drought tolerant because they're being more native to the area, so they'll be more familiar with the rainfall, annual rainfall, things of that nature, dealing with heat. So
you're preaching to the choir.
No, you're now. That's really good feedback. I think it's really useful for our clientele. So the third question I had is, from your point of view, what are some of the long-term land benefits, water efficiency benefits, and even cost maintenance costs long-term for land that you see from having a healthy native vegetation in place?
Yeah, so you know, there's a thing called xeriscaping, you know, in the landscape world. And so we're used to planting a lot of things that aren't from here, but you know, we thought they were pretty. So we started planting them. But with that, you're going to have to irrigate, you know, during a droughty summer. You're probably going to have to fertilize them. You know, there's a lot of maintenance with that, and they're pretty, but that's it. But we also have a lot of pretty natives, and they've been on they've been on the Texas landscape for, you know, tens of thousands of years maybe, and they're adapted to those areas. You know, they can grow roots that go 8 feet deep and contribute to the soils. They'll build up your organic matter in your soils, but because they have deep roots, you know, they can handle 20 inches of rain a year. So, you know, while we may think things are the best, Mother Nature really knows what's best. And so, yeah, these natives, you plant them, they can handle it. And they're not going to need as many inputs. They don't, you know, I have people calling, you know, wanting to plant trees and water them. Well, with the proper timing and the proper species, a lot of those expensive inputs aren't necessary. And your wildlife, they're adapted to those species too. So that's all you need.
I love that. And like I said, especially in Texas, water's the name of the game. And so to have those deep root systems, they're breaking up, creating a healthier layer of topsoil so that your water retention is higher, so you don't have as much runoff. And so you're making the most of the rainfall that you are getting.
It's called infiltration, you know, but when you have a landscape covered in non-native cattle grasses with shallow roots, a lot of that water is going to run off onto the next property where they've got natives planted everywhere, and then it's going to soak in over there. But with those deep root systems, you'll get a lot more infiltration, and you'll have a lot more water banked in your soil for when you need it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's such good information. I really appreciate you taking the time and talking to us, Dudley.
Happy to do it anytime.